This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
And welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today I am a post-Thanksgiving, very giving, gifted, sated podcast boy. Just very happy that we had such a wonderful Thanksgiving, which if you listen to our Patreon, you'll hear us talk all about. Yes. But yes, it was one of the better cooked meals, thanks to my wonderful and talented husband.
Yes.
That's me. I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I was cooking up a storm. I was worried about things, but I had that moment where everything came out of the oven at the same time, and it was all perfect. I did a sweet potato casserole for the first time, and it had a perfect, the marshmallows got perfectly browned and
there was
shattered. Yeah, they shattered when you cut into them. It was a great time, and we're
nice.
Working our way through leftovers.
As one of our guests said, it was the first time he ever understood the purpose of marshmallows on a sweet potato casserole.
Oh, that's nice. Hi, my name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I'm in that sort of perfect post-Thanksgiving comatose state, even though it's been 3.5 days. I may have eaten more than my share of leftovers on the way out the door. Because I traveled for Thanksgiving. So I'm definitely feeling the itis. It's going to be a very chill weekend. Let's put it that way.
Michael channeling his inner Tupperware. All of this needs to get on the plane, and I don't want to carry anything.
I tucked it into my cheeks and, just save it for later.
Hey there, my name's Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood. And today I am a well-stuffed stuffing boy. I was underwhelmed by the stuffing offerings, and Thanksgiving is a stuffing holiday, damn it. So I made my own damn stuffing.
Oh, good for you.
Nice. I've been mining my way through the brick.
Patreon plug. Thank you, patrons on Patreon. Is it patrons? Do we actually have an answer to that?
I call them patrons.
Okay. Well, thank you to those people.
I call them patroids.
Okay, that's it. That's
Prime.
the new thing. Thank you, patrons.
For supporting the show. Thank you to Bigger City as well for being a constant what's the thing? Not advertiser. Jesus Christ. Sponsor. That's the word that my brain forgot temporarily.
Sponsoids?
No. That doesn't work a bit.
Yes, don't be crazy, Trevor. Also, a quick reminder that this weekend, the weekend after this episode launches on Sunday at 12 noon Pacific
And by
Standard
Sunday,
Time.
you mean December what?
December 3rd at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. We are doing our live Big Fat Gay Holiday Spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have prizes. We're going to have drinks and recipes and tips for presents.
And a clown.
And wait,
no clowns. I will say
I already got the makeup.
Oh,
the giveaways came, and I was going to show you, but Dan's like, no, it should be a surprise for everyone.
I wanted to be a surprise for as many people as possible, including Michael and Don.
Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
so exciting.
I like that.
I'm into it.
I'm very, they're really cool. I want to show them, but they're downstairs.
No, bad job.
Yet.
I. Michael, take us.
With that, let's...
Breaking news! Podcast editor Michael here from the future, which is actually your past, but it's the future of the people recording this episode who forgot to mention
that we will be watching the movie Genie and talking about it in a couple weeks. The movie is a Melissa McCarthy movie. It's Christmassy, it's holiday season-y, and it looks like a lot of fun. So we are going to watch that. If you want to watch that with us, the episode will be coming out on December 13th, which is 2 weeks from the date that this episode comes out. So you got plenty of time to settle down. It is streaming on Peacock, I believe. Spoiler alert, I've already seen it. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that, but I've already seen it, and I think you should too. Okay, back to the episode. Let's just careen down the road.
Ooh,
Jazz
careen.
hands and tap shoes. Thank you, everybody, for not attempting to sing along to that. I tried to edit that in the show, and it didn't work. We have lag, in case anyone hadn't noticed. But we do our best. So
Michael,
what do we got?
We never attempt to sing along. We always do sing along.
I would strongly debate that. Okay, so first up in the hopper, according to Yahoo Sports.
Now,
for some reason,
it should be said that this was such a big deal on TikTok that Next Shark picked it up, and then Yahoo Sports. It has nothing to do with sports.
It's nothing to do with sports.
This is a subway
fat phobia
station.
is now a sport.
Yeah, so a subway station in Seoul, South Korea. And it should be said this is a rather major subway station. If you're familiar with the New York subway system, this would be like, like the Queensboro, like some Queensboro stop. It's off the beaten track, but it is definitely like where a lot of lines come together. And there is a little decal on the floor. And the decal on the floor on the left has a picture of like the sort of icon you'd see for a men's room. And then on the right, it's an icon of like Baymax, like chubby guy. and the arrows point in diverging
thick
directions.
Thighs.
And basically the fat icon is pointing towards the escalator, whereas the thin person is pointing towards the stairs.
And you can imagine the outrage, that went on this now viral TikTok video, and people in the comments having a lot of different takes on why this is fat phobic. Nobody seems to really agree on why that is. Maybe it's saying that, the fat people can't take the stairs. And so or maybe it's saying that you'll lose weight. You'll become thin if you take the stairs. I think it's like, what, or better yet, people who, might have a disability that need to take the escalator, but are feeling fat shamed. Like, only fat people would take an escalator.
Here's the
it's
problem.
So stupid.
No, look, the basic problem is that this is not about being fat or thin. There are lots of fat people who can take the stairs and lots of thin people who can't. It has nothing to do with whether you're fat or not. Here's what I want to know. Unfortunately, the person who posted this on TikTok did not do the translation. If you look at the image, there's all this writing on the thin person half and nothing on the fat person half. Like, what do we need to say? You're fat. And on the thin side, there's all this writing, and I would love to know what it's discussing.
Nobody's translated that?
It's not
in the
that
article.
Not that I can see. And the other thing that I would point out is it's not like a helping like Pathfinder. Like this is not around the corner like, oh gosh, where are the stairs? Where is the escalator? Yeah. Well, we're not going to tell you. But no, it is literally like 10 feet in front of the escalator, pointing out that fat people use escalators.
That's sort of the biggest point to me. It's like it doesn't mean anything. It's literally like
it's not helpful at all.
This direction to explore your biases of straight sizeism, this direction to explore your fat phobia. Because there's no other context given. It's fat bodies this way, thin bodies that way.
No, but my point is you would see the escalator long before you'd see this sign.
Right. It's not really helping anybody.
But it's not helping anybody.
Yeah. It's hard to parse, but as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of uproar about it.
I feel like I've seen like photos of this on Reddit like years ago.
Probably.
And
there's others, and having been reported as far back as 2013, so up to a decade ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I always think it's interesting to see things like this redigested through the public discourse.
Well, and Western public discourse usually. Because what's interesting is although a lot of Asian cultures are highly anti-fat, they don't have the same shame around this. Like in America, you'd be like, oh, don't call them fat. That's so nasty. Whereas in Asian cultures, like they're fat. What do you want me to say? It's much, there's no taboo around mentioning it. And so you do get signs like this.
Yeah. To me, the story is really in the comments on the video, not so much the actual thing itself. Mm-hmm. And, this stuff that is dicey, that kind of sucks to get into, is stuff like, in this article, it's shown, people agreeing with the message saying, it means this you use the stairs and you'll get in good shape, which just sort of perpetuates this weird like exercise equals weight loss equals fitness equals health thing.
No, it's always funny to see how people defend anti-fat bias.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Without knowing what that writing says, it's hard to put that on South Korea.
Well, I think just the decal is enough. I'm okay with putting that on.
I think it's probably some public health thing. And I mean, that there was not any discussion of like, well, how could this affect people's mental health by,
like, what if that's not a fat person? What if that's just somebody wearing pads because the escalator is, dangerous? It's been broken in the past. Like, I don't know.
I see. So basically it as being bad graphic design work, honestly. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, there's no additional context. It's just, this is a fat person, arrow this way.
So what you're saying really is
you know what that means nothing.
So what you're saying is it's that like runners this way and hockey goalies that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
or Baymax. Just,
or
Baymax. Yeah.
Our next article is a lot more uplifting.
I love it.
It's uplifting.
Yes.
This is from the magazine Fashionista, and the headline, Fashion Schools. Oh, well, where's my mind? Fashion Schools Addressing Size Inclusivity. And this is absolutely true. I remember I was at a conference in Toronto in 2019, and one of the speakers at this eating disorders conference was the director of a fashion school in Vancouver, talking about getting the students to design more inclusively for size, for disability, things like that. And so this article is about the schools that are training the next cadre of fashion designers and really pushing for inclusivity in terms of size and disability. And in many cases, it's the students pressuring the faculty for this.
Yeah, that's the thing that I thought was very cool was the talking about how the students were requesting alternatives, not just to size, but also to gender identity and how they learn about fashion and how they can make their own designs while they're in school. I thought that was really cool. And the way that they said it was like, once the current generation is in charge in, 15, 20 years, you're going to see a total shift, which, I mean, doesn't help us in the interim time. But
I actually wanted to pitch this in because that's what I was thinking. Oh, great. All we have to do is wait 10 to 20 years for them to run Vogue or something.
All we have to do is survive 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. No. Actually, what I love is that FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology. Yeah, they launched this thing called Inclusive Fashion Pattern Making course, and it is a continuing education course that will help create and grade patterns for plus size customers and give an overview with a size chart creation and measurement data and marketing. So basically, what if you're already in the fashion industry? What do you do? And FIT has created this resource, Inclusive Fashion Pattern Making.
It's kind of like how doctors have to continually stay up to date with modern medical practices.
Absolutely.
Like
because I feel like there's a lot of doctors that don't do that. And they're just like, oh, let's have an apple a day. Sport.
The other thing I really loved about this is there's Farai Simoyi, who's the assistant professor and program director of fashion design at Thomas Jefferson University. So this was really interesting. He's talking about how graphic designers or media students now have to understand that marketing the product is as important as designing it. So he's talking about how it's not just about having plus size fashion. It's about how do you market plus size fashion in a way that's not, either, oh yeah, we got these sizes too, or,
hey fatty,
or
want to buy some drapes,
which I think is going to be so important. I think particularly for the men's market, because, so many times the women are ahead of us in all things fat fashion and fat liberation. And I think it'll be really important to get the guys on board with wearing stuff like this.
I mean, I think it's gotten better just in the past couple of years because it, big and tall stuff, it was always the tall models that they would, shoot for things. And now it's like, oh, there's actually, a broad model who is larger.
Interesting.
And it used to be that if you were shopping with a big guy, you could basically point out the black, the brown, or the navy option in any like it's all black, brown, navy, black, brown, navy, black, brown, navy. And if there was color, it was like, rust.
Forest green or something.
Forest green, like
earth tones is what you got.
Oh my God! Because basically, if you were fat, you were supposed to wear camouflage.
Right. You have to blend in.
Yeah,
I love that. They're also working on sustainability and greenwashing.
Yes,
and I would love to see that coincide and work with plus size clothes, because that's just everything I can buy is synthetic.
Yeah.
And just, I would love clothes that are not releasing microplastics every time I wash them.
Yeah. I really like
all the most attractive clothing I've seen. Like, they don't make materials for big guys that breathe, apparently. It's very weird.
I really like the focus, as Trevor was saying, on not just, having sustainable materials, but also garments that are designed to last, rather than, just make something for the season and then it falls apart in, 7 months or so. Having something that is designed, like, as people grow, they tend to gain weight, usually just naturally, and having garments that can accommodate that to some degree, and having that in the design of those garments. There's a lot of very forward-thinking points of view.
I think that goes back to really kind of the students and, I guess are they Gen Z? Are they Gen Alpha? Whatever.
I think
the
Gen
youth.
Z is starting to get out of school now. This might be the younger one.
The youth, I'll just say. Like, I feel it's like the young Gen Z and,
oh God,
elder Gen Alpha pushing back against synthetic fabrics. I saw this article about, it was like this thing on TikTok of people, sharing, like, I bought this, advertised as wool coat and it's all acrylic.
Whoa.
But it's sold as, whatever wool coat.
Wool
style.
It creates this very weird dynamic where, like, it's this fast fashion, right? That for clothing you're going to wear for a week or two, but the clothing itself is made of materials that will outlast you, period. It's going to exist in the world far longer than you did, like decades after you've forgotten about it.
Oh, a century.
So.
Yeah.
I like the idea that there will be when we kill the planet, the acrylic-based life forms will rise up.
But what will they wear?
So anyway, very, very cool stuff. And continuing our fashion theme for the middle part of the episode. Oh God, where is it? There we go.
It's Fat Watch 2023.
I love, like, the middle of the episode, we get that shot of dopamine from Watch music.
It's like the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit or whatever. It's like all the fashion designers riding on eagles,
swooping in to save us at the very end.
Yes.
And then we all go, couldn't you have just done this the whole time? Like,
they were sewing, Michael.
Well,
so now in Fashion Magazine, there's a feature on Nikhil Kapoor, who is changing the look of plus size men's fashion, and actually kind of to keep the whole, like, I don't know, we're Lord of the Rings vibes, sci-fi fantasy vibes. He talks about at the end of the article Doctor Who, and when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I feel like that gives me a whole new context to his style.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
So who is Nikhil? He is an overachiever, some might say. Yeah. He's got all these degrees, and he decided to go to law school instead of medical school because he thought it would be a little bit easier, as law school is. And during all of these many, self-improvement, self-advancement projects, he's also designing clothes.
Because he had nothing to wear.
Because he had, exactly, as he was developing his fashion in his 20s, as most of us do, realized there was very little for him to choose from, and started a couple different sort of thrusts of it. And currently his fashion brand is called Posh Heat.
Heat. I love it.
A very cool name. And he's kind of blowing up right now. He had posted a TikTok that was the sort of the setup to the title of it was when plus size men's fashion Pinterest inspiration doesn't exist. And then he kind of shows like a standard, like, a model of a female model wearing an outfit as like a Pinterest, inspiration. And then he walks out with his own version of that same outfit and kind of does a spin and shows it off. And it kind of goes like that. And he shows all the different ways that he can kind of accomplish these looks himself. And it's super cool.
I like the origin story of that, or his origin story, is that he was noticing how in the men's section, there is no plus size men's section. Like, you look at whatever there is, and I don't know, maybe this is either for better or for worse, but you look at the pants and they go up to whatever size they go up to. Whereas in the women's section, there is a specific section of plus size. And so he kept going there because he's like, well, I know that'll fit me. So he ended up, he wore a lot of clothes that he would steal from the women's section. And some of it is very androgynous, like, jackets.
Right.
Or, or wraps or things like that. But it's interesting what he does with it. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's also creative. Interesting that it made me really understand, like it put into terms that whenever I go to a big and tall men's store, I only see 3 fashions, right? You see street thug sportswear, you see work casual, business casual, and then you see sort of a
blank t-shirt.
No, I would call it's dadcore.
Yeah, dadcore. It's like as devoid of fashion style as possible to make it as inoffensive for any situation as possible.
And easy to design in massive
And so when I saw his offerings, I have to admit, like the very feminine look of the clothes that he was demonstrating were not things I found appealing to me. In that one thing, I have to say I did more of it to a deep dive of his creations, and I actually liked his broader spectrum a lot more than what I saw sampled in this particular example. But it made me realize, like, I am not used to seeing clothes that are made for me, right? Like that you can get in a big and tall, made for my body, that you can't get for a smaller body. Which implies that they think that anything that would look good on a thin person would look good on a fat person and vice versa. That's bad thinking, right?
Yeah.
He has put a little more thought that as your body changes, there may be new styles that will work on a bigger person that are just not considered for smaller people. So they're not put into the mainstream for us to consume.
Your Don's point about the 3 styles kind of just made me think of, like, I think there's more than 3, but I think it's very limited. And that, we don't, as a society, we don't talk about the fat goth to biker pipeline.
You are so right. You are so right.
That is the only real, like, so I'm like, where are the fat adult goths? It's like they become bikers because that is where things can only go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you're wearing a big black hoodie, that evolves into a big black leather coat.
One thing I really like, it, at least based on the photos in the article, is his style. To me, really doesn't present as masc or femme. It's sort of just fashion. It just has layers and sharp angles, and it feels like this is not just a person who's dressing himself. This is a person who's taking garments and making a statement with them, something that, your everyday person is not necessarily going to do, but it looks great. It looks interesting and cool and shows off his uniqueness.
I think that's true. And I think Don's point is well taken that, what he wears himself is pretty androgynous, in some cases feminine because it's pulled from the women's section. But in his more general designs, it's a much broader range of style and line and flow.
I mean, I have recently really found, like, pants just don't work for me.
No, pants are a terrible idea for a fat person.
Pants are the worst.
That is, I was waiting to say the same thing, Trevor. Yep.
Yes.
And because my body is 2 different sizes depending on if I am or sitting. Yep. And I guess this is a good time to shout this out. When we were going to New York, I was like, I need pants for New York. It's going to be cold. And One Bone brand has, I can't remember exactly what they call them. They're a kind of cross between lounger pants and something that looks like jeans. And those saved my life in New York because
and they really
are
look good. Yeah.
They're stretchy. They have an elastic waist.
What was the brand again, Trevor?
One Bone brand.
Like not two bones, but one bone.
One bone. Only just no bones, just one bone. And also like, the Super Fit Hero, I got some of the long leggings, and that is just, I think, what I have to do at this point, because like getting pants from King Size Direct, I don't know, like,
You don't know what you're going to get.
I need to speak to the manager. I need to go into the boardroom and throw those giant balloon pants on the
Clearly
boardroom
don't
table.
have an understanding of what of what you're talking about, sitting and standing.
And they're like, they advertise stretch. Where is the stretch?
Well, because here's the problem. The stretch.
Where's the stretch?
The stretch that they're talking about is 1 or 2 inches. The stretch that you need is like a foot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I really appreciated about Nikhil Kapoor's stuff. When I was looking at his materials, even though it wasn't necessarily to my tastes, I will say I looked at the pants he was wearing and I'm like, he understands what's going to happen to my body when I sit down. Those pants are not going to be, shall we say, overly revealing when I decide to sit down by, putting the outline of everything I own on the front of my body, because it is rapidly changed and they didn't take into consideration what a belly does underneath that,
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very cool to see such positive strides happening in the fashion world. And it's always good, I think, to just take a moment to recognize what seems like forward progress, because a lot of what we talk about is really just 1 step forward, 2 steps back, like feeling that the weight of the world not shifting the way we want it to. And like, these are strides in the right direction. And that's
absolutely
very, very cool.
I want to be friends with Nikhil. He just seems like,
He looks super
I
cool.
feel like it's like I don't know. It's like if my life were a CW show, he would be your like best British friend who like comes in with a cigarette and it's like, let's, I'm not going to try to do it. I'm not going to try to do a British accent.
British listeners.
Yeah. But like, let's get you ready for the fashion award thing, Trevor.
Yeah.
You really wanted that. You really wanted a stylist before.
Before the award ceremony. Well, you looked great regardless. And if you want to see his acceptance speech, I think did we post it broad?
I didn't post it broad yet because we were going to try to get do the whole thing, put it on the website with our awards.
Oh, right. We need to, and we haven't gotten a chance to take the picture yet.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming soon, probably after this weekend, maybe sometime next week, we'll have a picture of all of us and our awards. And Trevor did an acceptance speech, which was really eloquent and beautiful. And we're going to post that too. It's on Patreon currently if you're impatient. But at any rate, let's get into our main subject. Coming out of, a lot of us coming out of Thanksgiving, which, side note, apparently Canada also has a Thanksgiving. I didn't realize. It's not in November.
Oh boy. Well, Michael, we're gonna hear all about that now.
Michael.
I didn't grow up in Canada. Why would I ever have known that? I have a Canadian friend that I was talking to about it. Anyway.
You'll be sorry.
Michael, it's a bad time when you got to pull out the Canadian. I've got a Canadian friend. I'm not anti-Canadian. Is that a good sign?
His name is
And he
James.
speaks excellent English.
No, he's not
God.
So well spoken.
This is all very uncomfortable, and I'm probably going to cut it from the show. We all just had, at least all of us on the show, had a really large, fun sort of gathering, meal included, lots of eating and festivities, and kind of wanted to talk about food shame and kind of the things that come up for some people when, you kind of have this obligatory shared eating experience, usually quite a bit of food, quite heavy food, delicious food, and how that occurs to people, especially when the holidays aren't over yet. And usually there's something for, Hanukkah, Christmas, any of the celebrations you might have around this time of year that aren't over yet. And so kind of addressing how do these things make you feel? How can you manage, say guilt, which I think a lot of people experience after eating large meals and stuff like that. And I know personally for myself, to start us off, that I've had to really reconcile food shame and body shame, like this year in particular, I've been dealing with some health problems that have really just made it impossible to have any sense of control over my body, which is the first time really in my life that that's been the case. I've typically had the privilege of, like, if I choose to just like exercise and eat a certain way, I'll slim down. And if I don't do that, I'll gain some weight. And right now I just don't have the choice. I'm going to gain some weight while I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I've had to kind of make my peace with that. And it is not easy. Yeah. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that feeling, but it's taken most of this year to really get to a place of, like, you know, and I will say the only thing I really have to tell myself that helps substantially is this is temporary, which is not always the case for people.
Usually not the case for the majority.
Usually not.
Yeah. So like that is still not a fully resolved thing for me. But coming out of Thanksgiving, I think the easiest thing was to focus on the communal aspect of eating a meal. Like, you know, to enjoy the food, not just because you're so fixated on the dish, but because you're enjoying it with family and friends. Of course, afterwards is a different story.
But one of the things that, you know, when we're dealing with food shame, right, is to understand where your food shame comes from, because we all get it from different places, right? So, like, for me, we've talked about it on the show. A lot of us have the family members, especially when you come from a very food-centric family with cooks that love to provide food, where food is sort of a vehicle for celebration, a vehicle for rewards, a vehicle for tragedy, a vehicle for a slow afternoon. You know, but while everyone else gets to participate in it and share in it, for some of us, there are family members that told us that was not for you, right? That is not something you're supposed to participate in because you're fat, right? This celebration is for thin people. Fat people don't get to have it. So I know for me, one of my big triggers is just like, you know, foods that are supposed to convey joy or seasonal expressions are things I'm not supposed to have because they're extra foods. And even decades after the damage, I'm around this time of year, I still have that little itch at the back of my head when I'm having my chai tea latte, right? That is something I'm not supposed to have. You're supposed to have a plain tea with no sugar.
Yeah.
No cream.
Not even lemon, because there's...
Yeah. You know, that's decadent, you know? So
All
understanding the origins of your food shame, where you get it from, is probably one of the few things that you can really do to take it in hand and grapple with it. Well, it's hard to address it until you know where you got it.
I would like to just add on to that. Knowing where it comes from is half of it. Letting it go is the other half, and the much more difficult half.
But you can't let it go until you know where you got it. Yeah. And
just not giving it that just because it was the case doesn't mean it must be the case.
Yes, that I totally agree with. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of amplify or broaden this idea of shame, because people may not perceive it as shame, and certainly a lot of thin people have food shame. A lot of thin people, but sometimes it's more like having, you know, grown up a fat kid and then getting into bodybuilding. Like, I don't think I had anything that I would call food shame, but I have a persistent and constant awareness of food. Like, food is never just food. Food is never just the taste. Food also has, to varying degrees, some sort of like, what is the macronutrient makeup of this? How is the protein content of that? What is the fat to protein ratio on this? Is there too much fat here? If I did this, what I wanted to and it's not even about shame. It's about calculation or strategizing. And I think a lot of thin people, even if they don't have shame, there's a lot of focus on should, shouldn't, better, worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really have the thing of shouldn't, but I have a lot of hyper awareness of oh, I'm not eating this kind of food, and my diet isn't really balanced right now, and I should be having, the more
food
fruit
pyramid,
or more vegetables, or I should, which I guess is now there's stairs on the food pyramid. I guess takes us back to the start of the episode.
It's a food ziggurat.
And I have all my weird food stuff. My mom tried really hard to not give us the same complexes she got, which gave us all different
All new
complexes.
ones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Every generation innovates.
Like recently she was talking about this whole thing with like, breakfast, and I don't even know how we got on it, but she's like, I need to have a muffin in the morning. And like, it's like I can have my yogurt and my fruit, but I need a muffin and like, or something. You can't just have yogurt and fruit. I need some carb. And it's like, well, yeah, because like that's my mom doesn't eat a lot. And it's like, yes, you need carbs so you can have power to
Well, and especially in the
exist.
morning, especially in the morning.
And just it was interesting kind of doing the post Thanksgiving thing with my mom, because she did not have a great Thanksgiving. And I think part of it, like she was felt very weird about the amount of food there was at Thanksgiving, like that there was too much food. It was too much. And also I think this may have been her first sober Thanksgiving. Because she quit drinking recently. And I know it was last year, but I can't remember when. And I think she still had wine or a couple of cocktails last Thanksgiving. So I think it was a different experience.
I think what you're saying is she was sober this year and it was so much worse.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that may have been what really did it, because I don't know. It
Looks like I picked the wrong holiday to give up drinking.
Yeah. Well, I think that just changes the whole dynamic. And I think also like, my brother-in-law wasn't drinking. My sister wasn't drinking. And my brother was. And I think that's just, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of course.
And I think it's just an interesting thing. And I think something that she didn't really take into account. And I think also maybe drinking lessened some of that like background noise she has about food stuff.
Yeah. That kind of ties into what I was going to say, which is kind of that hyper awareness that Dan was talking about. Like if you're not numbing your senses with drinking, you're hyper aware of like what you're eating and how you feel after you eat. And for me, there's a lot of like analysis, just being in a state of self-analysis and like, well, how much was too much and how do I feel right now? And I wish I didn't feel this way. And it's like, sometimes, and I won't say this is necessarily easy for people to pick up and learn, but just saying, you know what, this is how I feel right now. I do feel some food shame right now. That is okay. I can just be with that. I don't have to live in that moment and analyze and say, well, I got to fix it. I got to make it this. I got to change it. I got to if that is the way that you feel, it just is. And it doesn't have to be good or bad. It just is. And it won't always be the case. And eventually that may even help you just live with it.
It'll only get worse if you deny it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or if you try and fight it, if you try and brute force your way through it.
Yeah,
it's worse.
I want to piggyback on that because I think this is important. Being aware of that psychic noise that we're talking about, right? And when you realize how much background energy you're putting into that, the amount of peace you can get from figuring out a way to try and just to put it aside. I think that's why. So that's one of the reasons why drinking during the holidays works so well for people, is because it helps clear the noise for some folks. And that awareness of food, right? Even if you're not grappling it in the moment, you're calculating through all these thousands and thousands of calculations that Dan and Michael are talking about. It's exhausting, even if you're not aware of it, right?
Well, one of the things that helped me was getting rid of this idea that I'll only get to have this food once. Like, that is so not true. I mean, really, I promise you people, pumpkin pie is widely available besides this one day a year. Like, you can have the pumpkin pie anytime you want. Turkey, they sell turkeys other times a year. You can have turkey anytime you want. There's no scarcity of any of these dishes. You can always make them for yourselves. It's not like you have to have as much as you can in this 24-hour window or something.
Make stuffing more often.
Absolutely.
Stuffing is a food that is slept on.
That's what I did. I didn't get my stuffing fix for Thanksgiving, so I went out and I bought 2 damn boxes of stuffing, and it's going to keep me going through December, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but there's this illusion of holiday food scarcity. That's simply not true. Now, is there a scarcity of like enjoying it with people? Well, maybe particular people, but just invite friends over the next time you make stuffing, and there you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's a good sort of lesson in that, which is, just generally not fixating. Like, if that's your thing. I know not everybody has that overthinking gene that I've got, but if you do.
Yeah.
I think also just like, aware, like, there's the hyper awareness, but then I think awareness can also be good, because I think just taking time to think about what you're eating, what you've eaten, what maybe your body is craving. We're like, oh, I kind of want some like, not that I should have vegetables, but like, oh, my body is aware that I haven't had vegetables. Maybe I should have some, get some nutrients, get some iron, some other things that the food pyramid told me I'm supposed to have.
I am not a vegetarian, but a few days after Thanksgiving is I almost always want a salad day at some point. I've had a couple lunches where it's just a big bowl of frozen vegetables that I've made well, because like I can't take any more stuffing.
I want to know, does anybody else, this isn't a big deal for me, but I do have this idea, because there are a lot of Thanksgiving foods that I do not enjoy. Green bean casserole, not my thing. Cranberry sauce, usually not. And mashed potatoes, I am famous for disliking. So
I don't even know you anymore.
Yeah, I know. So but I wonder, I kind of feel like, oh, I really should take that. And if I'm over at somebody else's house, like, then you're even more obligated, like, no, you should try it.
Oh, I see.
Do people feel a sense of guilt at not taking certain foods? Like, I don't like it, but I should. It's Thanksgiving.
I used to, but I just am like, I don't know.
That's not a part of me anymore.
I do.
But it used to be. But it used to be.
For me, it's more along the lines of, participating in somebody else's fancy meal, not having that sense of comparison, because, not to overstate it, but the fancy meals that my family prepares tend to be pretty fucking great. And it's hard to measure up to that for a standard, everyday family who's just making or picking up a meal from somewhere pre-made, and not having that sense of comparison. Like, that's more the one that I have to just really mentally separate myself from and just enjoy it for what it is.
I think I have the opposite experience of you, Dan, where you're talking about like, well, there'll always be turkey. There'll always be mashed potatoes. Now, I've always been around really good cooks, right, who can never reproduce the same dish. So for me, I have an opposite experience. If I don't try that dish you made this time, I may never have the chance of trying this variation of it ever again.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, the real horror story begins with people like my mother, right?
No.
Longtime listeners of the show will be shocked to discover that there are traumas. There are certain traumas associated with Dawn's mother.
Very justified, very terrifying traumas.
My mother's Thanksgiving experience is one of making these wonderful foods that she will never be able to reproduce again. My mother is literally incapable of making the same dish twice. She just can't. She wouldn't know how. And then physically attacking anyone who would like me, who would try and sample it.
We try and sample it
and shaming.
Wait,
yeah, absolutely. So the one time my mom came out to for Thanksgiving in Los Angeles, I worked really hard to make a good meal, right? And then she would criticize me before every bite of are you really should you have that? Like that? No. And she wouldn't eat it, right? Because no, it's too decadent. Like this is, just because it's Thanksgiving doesn't mean you should have pumpkin pie, right? And that's not that rare an experience. I feel like a lot of people have someone in their family.
No.
And
absolutely. It just varies by frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, it varies by frequency, and they've embedded themselves in our heads. That's what I'm talking about, this voice of denial robbing you of the joy of the occasion.
I see. Yes.
I mean, I am aware of it but my grandma was like, she was not like, oh, have a cookie. It was, her thing was like, isn't that ridiculous? It was,
Having
and it
a
was
cookie.
always, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, it's, it was always too much or too little. So if she got under your skin about like, oh, well, you shouldn't have a cookie. It's like, oh, you're not going to have a cookie.
I think you mean like, oh, you're not going to have a cookie? My goodness, why aren't you having cookies? I put them out
and
for
then
you.
and then you have cookies. It's like, oh, it's too many cookies. What?
Look how many cookies you ate, you bad thing.
Yeah.
It's that catch-22 of, like these people have put so much work into providing this stuff. Do you insult them by eating it, or do you insult them by not eating it? Like, you can't
By the way, I kind of want to take this out of the holiday frame and put it back in the Chub Chaser frame. I have heard from many Chubs who have talked about how they had this chaser over, right? And the chaser stays to the morning, and the chaser has an amazing time with this Chub's amazingly fat, beautiful body. And then the next morning, the chaser actually says, oh my God, are you going to eat that? Oh.
Yeah.
Like you're going to eat
food shame
pancakes?
coming from chasers is
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awful. It's because they haven't reconciled with themselves.
They haven't reconciled.
I'm glad I haven't hit that. I don't know how I react to that.
It can be for a lot their own food shame or their own, and it goes the reversed way too. But it's not as toxic. Like when a Chub says to a chaser, as Chubs have said to me, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you're eating that." Well, I guess you can afford to. And it's just yuck. Look, it's just their own food shame, and I will call them on it. But it happens both ways.
I think it comes back to the whole thing of people, having developed food complexes. And I think also there's a good chunk of, as it always comes back to, racism in weird food shamey stuff, because it's so often just like, oh, that's foreign. I don't understand what that is. That's disgusting. Why would you eat that? I don't.
Or even just as simple as, God, how can you possibly eat that much fried chicken? That is just so bad for you. That is all those fried foods. And it's just like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
Like, just let people live. Anyway, we're on a roll, but I feel like we could keep going, but we should probably wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
This is a topic that is evergreen, and I'm sure we will return to it again. So, dear listener, if you want to chime in here on this one, I'm sure that any reader listener letters will get gotten to eventually. Yeah. And I'm sure I could say that more eloquently, but we've got to move on.
Write us about your holiday food stories.
Yeah. I would love to hear listeners' tales of food stuff, because I think there's a lot to say there.
We have, I guess we don't really have a tip today. Just a reminder to join us on December 3rd for our live Zoom at 12.
What are we doing on December 3rd? The live Zoom? Okay.
The live Zoom holiday spectacular. There's prizes. There's fun. There's us all in person with our chaotic in-person energy, which you guys haven't seen on Zoom before. Anyone who went to the Bigger Vegas recording will understand what that means. So, Don, take us into Bitland.
All right. Since we were talking about food shame today, with food being at the center of most of life's celebrations, tragedies, or slow afternoons, food guilt can suck the joy out of too many wonderful moments. With that in mind, when we take the moment to enjoy our favorite foods, we need to do it in the face of commonly accepted social shaming, the shade of the self-righteous foodie. We've all got something we love to eat that we think someone else is ready to throw shade on us for. But strange food is real food, and it deserves to be treated with the seriousness of any gourmet dish. So here are a couple dishes that are someone's favorite guilty pleasure. With each one, you need to pick the real-life cooking tip that you should keep in mind if you should ever make this dish for someone who loves it.
Okay.
Right? So first, we stop off in Japan for a lovely helping of shiokara. Shiokara is a Japanese delicacy of fermented squid intestines. It's stinky, slimy, and a very acquired taste that Westerners will struggle to stomach. But if
being
you're going
intestines. I mean, chitlins, look, we aren't any better.
Yeah.
What should you keep in mind? 1, the aromatics used must be whole or the dish will be bitter. 2, fermentation must take place in the squid's own viscera, meaning guts. Or 3, sugar added must equal 1/4 the weight of squid intestines used. Or 4, the full mixture must be sealed airtight in a fish's bladder.
Definitely the fish's bladder.
What is the most authentic cooking thing. In this.
I think the fish bladder.
I'm almost inclined to say this is a trick question and they're all true, but I'm going to go with the bladder.
Well, I also like squids have intestines.
Okay, we got 2 for bladders.
What did you think those tentacles were?
I'm going to say sugar just because I feel like the other ones, like I want to say the bladder, but I don't really know how airtight you could get a fish bladder. So I'm going to say sugar just because I'm feeling different.
Well, the correct answer is if you're making real shiakara, the fermentation must take place in its own viscera. This is a dish of squid
Jesus
intestines
Christ.
just soaked in guts for a month on end. And but we're not going to food shame anyone. If you love your shiakara, you enjoy
tested
your shiakara.
that? Like, did it wrong enough times that they survived the testing process to get to the point that this is how it should be? Like, how do these things happen?
I don't know.
It's probably the same way that people came up with the recipe for blue cheese.
Yeah.
That's probably true. Let's not even get into the whole the maggot cheese that they're famous for.
Yep.
All right. From Japan, we travel to Peru to enjoy some lovely cuy, or as we know it here, guinea pig. It's a hugely popular dish in Peru and very easy to find. It has gained a reputation as a must-try dish for tourists visiting the country. And since it's traditionally prepared for just about every special occasion, it's not that hard to find. Now, if you are making guinea pig for your special guest at home, you're obviously going to serve it with potatoes and vegetables, the way it's traditionally served. But what's the most popular way to serve the guinea pig meat itself, aside from spit roasting, which everyone knows that's how you normally make it? What is the most popular way of preparing it? 1, frying it. 2, braising it. 3, drying it. Or 4, boiling it.
Oh, God, I hope it's not boiling it.
I'm going to go with braising.
Braising is also the direction.
Okay, we got 2 for braising.
That's how we make ours.
It's so small, it seems like it would
I'm
need
going to
some
say
moisture.
boiling.
Boiling. God.
Wow. Okay, so I do not want to enjoy any of your guinea pig feasts because, as we all know, frying is the way to prepare your guinea pig.
Okay. All right.
Apparently, it has a good sort of fat to meat ratio for frying. All right.
Really?
I see.
Interesting.
We're going to return to Japan for our dessert. Jibachi senbei are a Japanese snack that looks something like rice crackers. Known as wasp crackers, these snacks are, surprise, chock full of waspy goodness. How are wasps used in crackers when made correctly? 1, full-size wasp is encased in sugar and tops the cracker. 2, 6 to 10 whole wasps are baked directly into the cracker. 3, hundreds of wasp eggs are baked into the batter but melt in the process of baking. Or 4, the crackers have a dusting of powdered wasp.
None of these are the ones I was thinking, so...
It's either the dusting or baked in. That's what I'm thinking.
I think baked in.
I think baked in. I was going to say like crushed and baked in, but...
we have 2 that are baked in. One is 6 to 10 whole wasps are baked into the cracker.
Whole wasps.
Oh, no.
6 to 10.
The 6
whole
to 10.
wasps, yeah.
6 to 10?
Yeah.
Okay, all 3 of you go.
Because if you're not getting the whole wasp, I just don't think it's complete nutritionally.
Well, all 3 of you are in fact correct.
Yay!
These crackers have 6 to 10 whole dagger wasps.
Oh
in
dear.
them, which are big ass wasps, complete with the stingers, and they're huge. But the crackers themselves kind of look like chocolate chip cookies. It's sort of surprising.
I just love the idea that there are dagger wasps as opposed to like throwing star wasps.
Chainsaw wasps.
Chainsaw wasps.
Yeah, but these crackers come from an area of Japan where these wasps have been part of the cuisine for centuries. And like they have these bowls of rice with wasps in them as just part of a standard part of the cuisine.
See, wasps in this country usually just have martinis and cheese boards.
But all these are celebratory foods. They're all real foods you can find around the world. So go out, check them out, see if you can get them near you. Trevor, if our listeners have some sort of waspy confection that they would like to share with us, where could they do that?
Well, send us your wasp recipes to oh God. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFat.
Where?
We're on Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or any podcast platform. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com, baby. Maybe you're having some wasp crackers as you listen, and you're like, what do these guys know? They're delicious. This is a normal thing. And then you pick up a cracker, and it's us as wasps, and we're like,
Oh, God.
which means
Watch out.